the Irrational Confidence Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and we are recapping the quarterfinal round of the first ever 12-team playoffs. We had some magic happen. We had all sorts of blown calls during this game. Officiating was terrible. But I'm joined by my co-host, the man who is never terrible, Fresh. How you doing, buddy?
Haps, I'm doing great. This playoff, it hasn't given us upsets, per se, I think, that really been shocked. But it's given us a lot of excitement, a lot of points, a lot of talking points to really dissect in. Good, bad, or different from the format, but the teams who are the creams rise to the crop, to the top. And you're starting to see, coaching matters. Using your best players in the biggest games matters. And we're seeing that come to really fruition across the board so far in this playoff.
Don't lie to our fans, Fresh. It's been a rough 24 hours for you.
It's tough, we all right. We'll just rip the Band-Aid off right off the bat. We knew this Georgia team had its strengths and its obvious glaring opportunities and weaknesses. They've been able to dodge, various obstacles throughout the season, overcome them with great defense or just timely turnovers, whatnot, and second half comebacks. If you look, I think someone put it out there. There's multiple people putting stuff out about the Georgia in the first half. I think they have 7 or 8 games where they've scored single digits or 0. And you eventually it catches up with you. You don't get going right off the bat. The defense, timely turnovers shorten the field, but they didn't come in bunches like they have sometimes in the past. Offensively, the O-line, lack of depth, lack of guys playing, not having true traditional tackles playing up to their abilities or be within the scheme, definitely were exposed by Notre Dame. Were exposed by Ole Miss, and in some ways even exposed in the first half versus Alabama. And they found other weeks in other games to sort of overcome that. Receivers not catching the football. And, you saw Aaron Smith finally makes a catch, and then, obviously the referee hits a player on the sideline, gets 15-yard warning. Then that is no way that did not solve or result in Georgia losing the football game whatsoever. It's a 15-yard penalty that could happen anywhere in the ball game. You still got to score touchdowns on the side of the field, but you start finally see a guy make a catch, but then Dylan Bell's a drop here. You got, other miscues, other spots. You got receivers missing blocks that turn to a fumble when the guy gets down, onto the running back and crashes down a little early. Running back's just not holding the football very often. Just lack of tackling, lack of blocking, the basics from the Georgia football team throughout the entire season, came to, fruition in the biggest moment. And in no way does that take away what Notre Dame did. Notre Dame beat the trash out of Georgia on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I'm sure the players will say that they were much more physical in the trenches. They didn't run the ball very often. Their running game was pretty much shut down. They didn't throw the ball through 88 yards passing, but they scored and they made the plays happen when they had to. They had the Guff return for the touchdown. They forced a fumble in the red zone. And they punched it in a couple plays later. They did what they had to do to win football games. And we are in this point right now where in the playoffs, it doesn't matter if you win 60-0 or by a point. You just have to survive and advance and move on. And who you have to face in that day. Notre Dame, as we talked about in our preview, this is not a Brian Kelly Notre Dame football team. Marcus Freeman had those boys ready to play. They showed up, they did what they had to do, and they won the football game. It's going to be a long off season in Athens. I have 100% faith in Kirby. Obviously, the program's completely changed. The expectations have changed since he stepped on campus. You bring up, another top 3 recruiting class coming in. And with the transfer portal, you never know. You don't want to oversell in the portal because sometimes that just, we've seen cases where it doesn't work out. And then we've seen teams like Arizona State where they can bring in 20-plus players. And Notre Dame did the same thing. They had 18 guys in the transfer portal all contributing. So it's just the way you get a core of players playing on the same page, playing disciplined football at all times. It's where, we talk about it's a long season. Who is really can be able to function at a high level when you get down to the 13th, the 14th, the 15th game of the year. When traditionally in the past, even from a high school perspective, most kids aren't playing 13 or 14 games in the season. Gunnar Stockton, not the problem. I think it was just a collection of things that really the flaws we've seen throughout the entire season sort of came to head. It'll be interesting to see how, this Georgia football program takes this, learning opportunity and moves forward. And I'll kind of wrap it up here with I never thought in my life that we would be complaining about a Georgia football team winning an SEC, beating all of your rivals, and going to a Sugar Bowl is somehow leaves you with an empty taste in your stomach.
Right.
That right there shows the expectations are so high.
Right.
And you've gotten to a point where now it's national championship, I would say maybe Final Four or bust. And that shows that you've gotten where you want to go, and you have to learn to accept different expectations. Now you're at a higher, loftier position on the mountain, as opposed to, man, Sugar Bowl, that right there's a dream. Now it's, yeah, but, and you rally, you learn, and life's greatest challenges produce the biggest successes in the end. So, we'll onward and upward, on to 2025, go Dogs. And, congrats to Notre Dame. This will be pretty exciting to see what they do for Penn State upcoming in the week.
You're way more subdued than I thought you would be. Way more subdued.
Look, there's nothing to get mad about.
Well, there is, but let me go over this here for you. The thing is that I go back, and a lot of times we look at previous programs and how they performed over time, and then we try to see a correlation between how other programs do and what the next year. How many times we've made comparisons to, I don't know, 2019 LSU or Alabama or, Ohio State or Georgia or Notre Dame or anyone that we said. And even in the opposite way of us even talking about Notre Dame here, we went into this preview episode saying to everyone, don't act like this is Brian Kelly Notre Dame. They went out and they proved it. Brian Kelly Notre Dame would not have won that football game. No way in hell. Doesn't happen.
Not at all.
I look back to 2015, 2014, 2015 with Ohio State. One of the biggest losses Ohio State had after they won their national title that really did a number on them was losing Tom Herman as their OC. Tom Herman was again, everyone's going to point to what happens over at Texas and everything else. But Tom Herman at that time had a great reputation as an OC. Georgia loses Todd Monken. And Monken is again a great offensive line. Look at what he's done. He's over up in Baltimore, if I remember right. Correct?
He's tearing up with the Ravens right now.
With the Ravens, right. Great offensive mind. And again, with all the credit, and this is not a knock on Kirby Smart. You are who you are as a coach. Kirby is a defensive-minded coach. There's a reason that Georgia is a great defensive program year in and year out. Kirby's going to have his finger on that defense as always. Same thing with Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz is not a great example. Kirk Ferentz is great at two things, developing offensive linemen and developing defensive backs. He's really good at that. He is not a good offensive coach, though. He needs someone to support him. I think the same thing is true in a lesser extent for someone like Kirby Smart. You bring in Mike Bobo. Bobo's been there for years. He was halfway decent his first go-around, but he had a different set of players, different set of talent. And I think that this team was recruited in the makings of Todd Monken instead of the makings of Mike Bobo. What Mike Bobo is more used to, and what you kind of brought up with previous guys, with Noshawn Moreno, AJ Green, Aaron, whatever, I can't think of that.
Matthew Stafford.
Right, all those guys. This is not the same team there. I think I really was intrigued to see the fact of I know Mike Bobo is like BFF with Kirby Smart. I believe they were if I read it right, they were college roommates together.
Yeah, I mean, they go back. The Smart family, the Bobo family go a long way back. The same with Muschamp. I mean, they were on the same team. That mid-'90s, early '90s football team, the three of them were all around.
But what
they know each
changes
other forever.
That's where I think the changes need to happen. I don't feel – and I went back and I looked. I don't feel like this game – it really came down to play calling. Why are me and you smarter than them?
Well, I think
we said the same thing. We said run the football. They didn't do it. Here's
the biggest problem. We have our good buddy Steve-O, who's another big Georgia fan as well, and we were texting during the game, and we text every single game. We talk all the time. when Georgia had that 21 and 22 season, that offensive line was loaded. And you kind of look at, we talk about this, trenches, line of scrimmage is the name of the game, no matter what it is. You got guys in the NFL in the past 3 or 4 years that have been drafted. Andrew Thomas, big starter there for the Giants. Mims is there. You got, Jones in Pittsburgh, Van Granger now, Warren McClendon's out there. These guys all been getting drafted in the top, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6 rounds, and they're all starting in the NFL. They're not on this team anymore.
Right.
And you got guards who normally would probably move to guard when they get to the real, when you get to this elite level college, they're having to play tackle, which are not traditional tackles to bookend. And you want to have a strong center, and you want to have 2 solid, tackles, and then you can build your guards. You're going to be, to fit your offense, but you need the 3 to really lock it down, especially the left tackle if you're a right-handed quarterback. The offense right now, due to injuries or just guys not hitting the development perspective, it limits what your offense could do when I'm not getting the elite level blocking for my running game, and I'm not getting pass pro, and I'm having to maybe hold an extra player for that perspective, maybe keep it in 6 instead of 5 to pass protect. And on top of that, you're not getting the receivers to catch the football consistently. Marcus Rosemy-Saint, obviously gone. He was a great run blocker, but he made catches when it mattered. You had Ladd McConkey in the slot doing it all. Obviously, you had Brock Bowers. You had George Pickens, who, when he was on the field, made big plays for the Dogs. This team, we knew they were going to kind of be a deficiency. Obviously, you had the Colby Young off the field situation, and you got other guys, Dylan Bell being banged up, Arian Smith just having the yips. I texted during the SEC Championship game, my buddy Steve, I'm like, we got Chuck Knobloch playing wide receiver, where you just don't know if that ball's hitting second base, if he's going to throw the ball in the first base or not, if Aaron Smith's going to catch the football or not. Sometimes he'll make a great play and he'll make the catch, and sometimes he won't. It's just, it puts I think an offensive coordinator, we want to get mad at Bobo, but we're not at practice, and we're probably looking at it. Obviously, to us, it makes too much sense. But Bobo had a whole hell of a lot of success with a lot less star recruits for many, many years with Georgia. Aaron Murray lighting up with a bunch of 3 and 4 star receivers and no big time tight end, and they were putting up record numbers. If you look at the SC passing statistics, Aaron Murray's name is littered all over the place. He did it there. And he had 2 great running backs on top of it. Here, Etienne Frazier in and out of the lineup, both of them have some, Frazier comes on but has some fumbling issues. Etienne's banged up. The 2 Robinson guys are dinged up all year long. Delp had some issues, injury-wise. Now he's getting himself back in there. That was probably the biggest surprise, that when you saw Carson back having success, is the tight ends were involved earlier in the football game. And I don't even know what day it is right now because we're in the middle of January, Christmas, and the whole schedule, my clock is off. But in that Sugar Bowl, Delp and Lawson Lucky and Urasek, the tight ends were non-existent in the passing game early in the football game. They didn't really get him involved, and that probably irritated me most. If that's the most reliant pass receiving options you have coming into this game, confidence-wise, why weren't they getting the ball early, getting him in a groove with easy passes? I think Bobo tried to be too cute with some end arounds and trying to hit the edges instead of running the ball between the tackles. But to me, in a 24-hour sort of cool down period, and looking back at the season as a whole, I don't think they have faith in that offensive line to get a push consistently inside the tackles or outside, and they're just trying to grasp at straws to try to move the football somehow they possibly can. You see receivers dropping passes. Anything we do, if you're trying repeated efforts and people are letting you down, you're going to stop going to them or you have some serious confidence issues, whether it's real life, throwing the football, pitching, dunking, driving a car, dating somebody. You have constantly, you're like, I don't know what the heck to do right now. And it makes you overthink situations, and it puts the offensive play callers like, well, I really don't know what to do right now. We're just going to try to put something out there. And you brought up Noshawn Moreno and Aaron Murray earlier this afternoon, and I was listening to the Players Lounge. Aaron Murray, Noshawn, and Tavares King, 3 very, very highly decorated Georgia offensive players, had a lot of success. Even them, and they all played for Bobo when he was the offensive coordinator there, or under Mecker's run. And all 3 of them were like, I don't know what the heck we were trying to do. Why weren't we running the football between the tackles? Why weren't we trying to get the ball to the tight ends? Their offensive line, they were just as awestruck as the entire season has been as we are as fans. And the fact that they played for Bobo, And none of them really want to throw him under the bus because obviously I think they have a relationship. They understand. They're like,
Right.
there's something not clicking there. Whether it's Stockton at quarterback or Carson Beck, we all kind of saw this happen. So there is development opportunities for this entire team. And I think that has to come ahead as we move forward.
Let's move on because we've spent a good 14 minutes on to player development. We got the whole offseason breakdown on that one. Let's go over to the Fiesta Bowl here. Penn State wins a banger of a game for them and looking really, really solid there. What does this mean for James Franklin? James Franklin, we talked about this again in the preview, that he has this monkey on his back, almost like an albatross on his back, about him versus top 5 teams, him versus top 10 teams. Boise State technically is a top 5 win now, technically. Because they ranked seeding-wise, number 3. But again, this Penn State team looked a little different. The defense played really well. But again, you take a look, Drew Allar, barely over 50% completion on his passes there. You talked a little bit off air about Singleton. He's bottled up until that 58-yard run late in that game. What's up with this Penn State team, and where do you take it? Like, where are you taking, like, James Franklin? Like, is James Franklin crawling out of the pit right now of, like, despair of head coaches and is finally showing, hey, I'm actually a really good football coach? Or is it, like, pure luck of the draw right now?
Well, but we'll talk about, I think we're going to do a whole episode on the playoff format itself,
right.
How it can really use the overhaul. They were blessed with a great opportunity. And you know what? I got to give credit to them. They're taking advantage of the opportunity. We've talked about this, you play who's on your schedule.
Right.
And they were giving SMU the way that the cards were dealt. Hey, we got SMU. We came out there, we took care of business. We get Boise State. And I'm sure they came in the game knowing we're going to win this football game. And you have that confidence, like, hey, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves walking in. We can show up, we can roll the balls out, and I think we'll find a way to at least win by a point and move on. I want to see what James Franklin does versus Notre Dame. All respect to Boise State, all respect to SMU, but if you're going into your trophy case and saying I beat Boise State and SMU, people are going to be like, yeah, congratulations. I mean, okay. Now, like we talked about other teams, like this is a logo game. Now you're playing Notre Dame. And Notre Dame has shown they are a pretty dang good football team. They've recovered from that NIU loss, and they are coming out with full force and some confidence themselves. So I want to see how they show up in Miami, especially when you're going to have almost a day and a half, 2 days extra rest ahead of them. Mm-hmm. You have no excuses. You have no injury concerns. Notre Dame has injury concerns. Benjamin Morrison not playing. Their top tackle was injured in the Indiana game. He didn't play. The replacements did just fine. They have more of a concern on a short rest and lack of depth than Penn State does. So there's no excuse for the Nittany Lions coming to this ballgame. I am concerned about, like we talked about, that offense still has not shown me consistent. It was 14-0. They had a chance to put the hammer down, and they turned it over. And they let Boise State kind of hang around a little bit. And it was still a football game to that middle third quarter until that big Singleton run when he broke it off. Allar, his number one option, his number two option is going to be Tyler Warren. His first and second read are going to be at 44. All right, now I got to get somewhere else.
Right.
His leg, he's kind of mobile, but he doesn't have the blazing speed like a Ryder Leonard or, to be able to get away. So he's going to be mostly that pocket passer. They still didn't really turn the run game consistently. They kind of had it. You saw it happening. You're like, all right, now they're going to get going. Keep pounding Allen, keep pounding Singleton. And then they just revert back at him middle of nowhere. Even the announcers, I respect Louis Riddick. Extremely, extremely smart guy. Knows what he's talking about when it comes to football. And I think he should be the GM of the New York Jets, but that's a different story. Even he was like, what the heck is this play call? Like, you finally get the running game going, and then you completely just run away from it when you're already having success. They shouldn't have thrown a pass that entire football game. They could have run the ball 100 times and put up 450 yards rushing and blown out Boise State. It was just very perplexing. And I don't know if that was trying to maybe like, hey, I'm smarter than everyone in the room. Like, sometimes you're the smartest person in the room. You just need to shut up and just don't say a dang word. Just do what you need to do and get on. And it almost, if Allar threw a pick that was maybe a pick six by accident or something, or the ball gets away, you're kind of like, oh crap. That game could have spiraled. Like, they were very fortunate. They held off. They contained Genty. Yeah, he had 30 plus carries. He broke 100 yards, but he never had the big one outside of a 3rd and 25, and he ran for 27, which I thought was a great play call, run the draw and just, get some yards. They contained. They forced Boise State to throw the football, and Madsen and the receivers did not show up consistently enough in that ball game. The defense for Penn State, elite. They are on top of it. They know what they're doing. I'm excited to see what they're going to do versus Notre Dame. But that offense still, but like the defense for SMU set them up in multiple great situations. They had some opportunities, short fields versus Boise State. I haven't seen them consistently drive the length of the field when the game still matters. Even back to Oregon in the Big Ten title game, they got the chunk of the yards and they're already down by like 28 or 30 points where they're playing, cover 4, just don't get them up to one play touchdown. Give me something more in this game, Penn State, when you come up. But hey, Boise State, congratulations, great year. Ashton Genty, phenomenal player. Hopefully you rock it in the NFL. I would love to see Ashton Genty go to the Ravens with him and Derrick Henry in the backfield with Lamar.
Be brutal.
Boy, but Penn State, I still, I'm gonna, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give you like an 8. You played really, really well, but I still want to see more from you.
Right. And I really walked away asking myself the question of going, when they play Notre Dame, are they going to be able to, which team is going to be able to throw the football? And that's what, I guess, I waited to see who Penn State was going to play to really start, diving into that football game. But again, Notre Dame's defense has looked so good throughout the year. The only game where I really feel like I fully questioned their defensive ability was the Big Ten title game against Oregon. Even the game against Ohio State earlier in the year, they still held Ohio State to 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
Again, though, what did Oregon do to them? And again, I'm going to have to go back and watch the abbreviated game tape of the Oregon game here a little bit later and to kind of prepare for our preview episode. But this Penn State team, I think we're starting to see why people originally were very high on James Franklin. James Franklin doesn't lose the games where his team is on paper better than the other team. He gets in trouble where when the talent level is equal or Penn State is slightly below the other team's talent level, that's where James Franklin gets himself in trouble. Those games wind up being coin flips. And I just feel like, is he completely unlucky? Because, 50-50 chance. And sooner or later, you're going to win those games when you flip the coin. Has he just been super unlucky in those games and just he made one bad call out of 150 that he makes during the game? That one call came back and bites him in the end of those games. I want to see more out of this Penn State team. I think that they have a lot of talent. The defensive side of the football is so good. And I know Abdul Carter got banged up a little bit in this game. I'm sure he's going to wind up playing in the Orange Bowl when they lace it up against Notre Dame. But again, are we getting 90%? Because no one's really 100% at this time. But are we getting 90% Abdul Carter, or are we going to get 50% Abdul Carter? I think that could be a huge changer in this game here as well. All right, Fresh, let's roll over to Texas, Arizona State. One of just the most ridiculous endings of a game I've ever seen whatsoever. First and foremost, I'm going to say this. I don't know what targeting is anymore. I thought I knew what targeting was.
I have no idea.
I've seen people get called for targeting. I've seen other things get called that I don't think are targeting. And then I see this where it looks like it is textbook targeting by the letter of the law, and it's not called. I also still I go back to Arizona State. It's you have the lead. It's 4th and I don't know what. I think it was 4th and 13.
4th and 13. Yep, 4th
something
13.
like that. And you send 7. They have to pass. I get it. Sending 1, maybe 2 extra guys, sending 5 or 6 in your pass rush and dropping the rest. But the fact that you sent 7 and left 4 guys in the back to play defense against this team, not a smart call there. Like, again, you can cry all you want about the targeting call. If I'm an Arizona State fan, I'm more pissed about that 4th down call because it was bad coaching.
And that's where the experience in the big game, I think maybe he got kind of greedy, or like the lights get a little bright. I don't know. Kenny Dillingham has done a heck of a job getting that program where it is. So I'm not going to
Arizona's,
bash the guy for his.
No, I wouldn't call for his job.
Coaching.
I'd just be pissed.
It's a, I think it's you live by the sword, you die by the sword. But setting 7 seemed very egregious because if you looked at the entire ball game up to this point, and this is probably where I'm gonna look at the other side.
They did have 3 sacks.
They had some sacks, but there was many times where receivers for Texas were open in that secondary and making plays, extended, explosive plays. And I think in their minds, like, we can't let Ewers just sit back there. Because they're going to we've got to force the decision. And unfortunately, he made the correct read, hit the hot in the seam, and the guy was wide open. If you probably look at the all 22, I got a feeling the other 3 receivers probably had a guy covered him, and just that one perfectly ill-timed, blitz where that seam was the one that was the hot read for Ewers, and he hit them and they scored. If they had it back, I'm sure they would probably run a cover 4, cover 3, maybe even cover 6, whatever. Just bring something a little more, bountiful in the secondary to provide a little extra coverage. Because, it was touchdown or bust. It really wasn't even 4th and 13. It was the ball game. And they're going to see that play probably for a while. And you're going to have to, it's a teachable moment, not just for the players, but for the coaches. And, growing up, becoming more comfortable, understanding situational awareness across the board, because Texas gave that game away. They should have run. The way the game was starting off, I was like, all right, I'm about to go take a nap. Because obviously that whole entire New Year's Day, there was obviously a lot of chaos, a lot of news breaking for,
other things.
Yes. Scary situations all across the country. People are aware, like, I'm taking a nap right now, so we reset for the night game, or reset for the Rose Bowl. And then, hey, Arizona State's right back into it. And I think the biggest story we need to talk about is just Texas can't put anybody away. They cannot put anybody away. And this is they've let Arkansas hang around. Obviously, the first game with Georgia, they got the doors beat off them in the first half. That didn't matter. But in the SEC Championship game, they should have run the dogs out of the damn fence, and they didn't. And they're just, it's kind of like, yeah, but like, is yours even that good? They abandon the run sometimes. They let Clemson hang around. That defense is, I'm sure Texas fans will probably jump in here and be like, you guys are a bunch of idiots, but I have not seen anything from Texas outside of the Michigan game. At that time, Michigan back in September, they were a team lost and had not found their identity at that point, especially on offense. And you took care of business, did what you had to do. You smoked Florida the week after they lost a heartbreaker to Georgia, but then you went to Arkansas and you played with your food. They played with their food. They should have beat the trash out of A&M, and they played with their food. They let them hang around, and Ohio State might embarrass Texas. And I'm talking like 40-point dominating win in Texas, in Arlington, in Jerry World on Friday night. If Texas doesn't solve some of these serious issues, it's not just the kicker who can't make a kick in the bends. It's yours not having the moxie, the awareness, the confidence to make big throws. It's not the offensive line getting the blocks when they have to get in critical times. The running backs, ebbing and flowing lately in that ball game. The defense giving up some inexplicable plays. Like, yeah, you want to say hook 'em this and hook 'em that. Well, you know what? Horns down. It's a paper champions right now, or paper, 4 seed. Of all the teams that have made it to the Final Four right now, you are the least impressive and the most lucky. Surviving advance is, back to is the moral of the story. You've survived and you've advanced, but you have been the least impressive. And if you give that same kind of effort Ryan Day, Will Howard, and the Buckeyes are about to beat the trash out of you. You got to do some serious manning up there in Austin, Texas, in this next week before you travel to Jerry World, or it could get really ugly, real fast.
See, I'm not willing to question yours yet. And I know that kind of sounds crazy because the kid did throw for 322. And he did complete 66% of his passes. Fresh, we talk about as long as you're close to like that 70 mark, 70 is considered elite level passing in college football. Like that is, and anytime that you're above 60, you're a pretty good college quarterback. Anytime below 60, we're going to start asking questions for you. All right. So he's in the range to be like what we would consider above average quarterback play, and throws for 322 and 3 touchdowns. Like you take a look at a stat line, but you're right. It's something more. Like there's something when you watch Ewers and this entire Texas offense. The thing again, I'm sitting there scratching my head again with Sark and the whole Texas offense. 30 carries for 53 yards. Like what?
The thing is, you're already throwing the ball, so their secondary should be. They're not playing 8 guys in the box.
Right.
That secondary's playing off, and you're still not be able to move the ball at the line of scrimmage.
And you knew Cam Scatterbo was going to get the football a lot in this game. And he goes for 30 carries and 143. And then on top of that, he has another 8 catches, 99 yards. Now, trust me, I believe Cam Scatterbo is maybe one of the best football players in the country. I would call him top 5, top 10 college football players in the country right now. But good God, like how do you not, like, again, sell out on him and make someone else beat you, and somehow you didn't do that. I don't know what it is about Texas. Again, it would be one of those things like Texas plays a game like we've seen all year long, and we go, oh, that's Texas. All I could see. And then at the same time, too, you'll see them play for like a quarter and a half. And you go, hey, that's a national title level team right there. That's a team that could beat anybody on any given Saturday here. I think you're right. I don't know what to expect with Texas here.
You know, with Scatterbo, so after their memes, if anyone's seen the Friday Night Lights, the movie, not the TV show, the movie, Boobie Miles' uncle, showing up to all college scouts. He's like, and he can pass. I literally thought we were watching the first 35 minutes of that movie, because that's the beginning part where he's still healthy. He's running over people, doing it all. And you just see this kid, Scatterbo, catching, touchdown, throwing the touchdown, running all over everywhere. Puking and rallying. The dude left it all on the field, left it all for Sun Devils. He's Mike Allstott. Reincarnated. It's an amazing thing to see. And,
it is.
It's a shame that he didn't get enough Heisman showcase as he should have. Cause you're looking at a guy who all season long has just done it. He's been the workhorse and finds ways to just get touchdowns, carry the ball, doesn't turn it over that much. He's a lunch pail kind of dude. And he put the Sun Devils on his back and almost carried them off. I'm going to say this right now, almost got them to their biggest win in program history.
Right.
Because obviously Jake Plummer was there. They almost beat Ohio State in that Rose Bowl. This would have been that biggest win of all time for Arizona State football.
Right. It's sad that we don't get another season out of him at Arizona State.
Yeah.
It's really sad. All right, Fresh, let's go over to the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. I was lost for words. I'm dead serious.
I'm just going to put it this way. I was watching Yellowstone episodes by halftime.
Here's the thing. I knew Ohio, as the rest of an Ohio State fan, I'll say this. I've known that, again, on any given Saturday, there's so much talent on this Ohio State team that any given Saturday, you can blow out anybody. If they're locked in, if they are motivated and locked in, there are very few teams in the entire country that have the level of talent that they have. It's not even funny. Amount of guys that are going to wind up having their name called in April. I'm interested to see how many, when we do our mock draft with our legal and our producer Drew, how many of these guys we're going to wind up picking in the first round, and hopefully Steve will join us for that this year again. But to go up 34-8 at halftime, and
that eight came with like a minute to go in the first half,
right? And to see Jeremiah Smith just smoking dudes, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The one touch on the sideline where he's triple covered. There's 3 guys on him. He makes the catch still. I think that, like, as much as I'm saying, like, in the previous part, where Cam Scatabo, it's a shame that we don't get another year out of him. The best thing, if you're a college football fan, is that you're going to hopefully get, praying to the injury gods and the football gods and all that Jeremiah Smith, you get to watch this kid play football for the next 3 years, or next 2 more years. You get 2 more years to watch him. Kid's amazing.
His effort reminded me of Marvin Harrison Jr. in the Rose Bowl a couple years before, back when they played Utah.
Right.
It's just, people heard the name, and then you just show up and they just go off on the biggest stage with everybody watching. And that's where it magnifies it, because everybody was already ready for that game. It's already a really hyped up, big time matchup, a revenge game. And it's New Year's Day, it's the Rose Bowl, and everybody and their mom is watching the game. And you see that dude just go off. And people are like, in football, so this is like the reason why they don't have the one and dones in football, because it's a physically demanding game. And even like certain players who are 17 years old that play for Alabama,
he's 18
most bodies aren't ready for that. And you're going to get beat up in the NFL. So that's why you don't go one and done. NFL players are like, Jeremiah Smith could be that one and done guy. You're going to get maybe 4 or 5 of them players here and there and over time. That's why we use the term generational. I think it's thrown around too much now, where everybody's a generational talent. Jeremiah Smith, he's pretty damn close to being a generational talent. And the dude who can just create separation, the way he just contorts his body in the air to make the catches, brings it down one-handed, two-handed. I don't really know how he does it sometimes. His route running is phenomenal. And he had talent when he arrived, obviously coming down from high school. He's obviously very, very elite, high-level recruit. But what Brian Hartline has done to that entire receiver room, but just to him and development, you take him to the next level. You know stuff, and then you know more because of that talent. It's going to be awesome to see how he transitions to next year and then to his junior year. And to learn from what you've been taught and your experiences, and hit the practice field hard. Don't get lazy. Don't get complacent, and push yourself to be even better. Because when you push yourself to be better, you can from now to unstoppable is still attainable, and that will be pretty amazing to achieve. But those boys put on a show.
It is. I still can't believe it, and I can't believe that this was the team I got to watch. It also, there's a little part of me that goes, "How the hell did you lose to the Wolverines?" Like, after watching these 2 games, how the hell do you lose to the Wolverines? I'm not going to go into that, because that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down to yet. And maybe in the offseason, I'll go into that rabbit hole. But right now, not time for that one. I look at this and I say, like, this Ohio State team is absolutely dominant. It's absolutely elite. And then I look across the field at Oregon. I think Dan Lanning, said in the preview, Dan Lanning, damn good coach. Good football coach. Like him a lot. I think I put him and Marcus Freeman as 1 and 2. And again, I put the dude over at Arizona State after the coaching job that he's done this year. I would be willing to kind of like lump him into this group as well right now, because I thought that was a hell of a job he did. But it looked like Oregon had no idea what Ohio State was going to do. And I'm just kind of shocked and going, how are you this ill prepared? Because it really did look like a team that just was like, oh, this team showed up for 2 quarters. And finally you feel Oregon get back to being Oregon late in the second quarter there. And then all of a sudden you're just like, we don't know what's going on.
I mean, you have thought if Ohio State had survived Tennessee in a very close game, it's like, all right, you know what? They got by. But they blew the trash out of Tennessee, too. I mean, we all knew this was coming. We've seen this talent. And, yeah, playing a team twice is difficult. But they were hit from the very beginning. And I'm not going to take away from, Ohio State played a team, that had 3 weeks or 4 weeks off. They were just rusty. No, they beat the junk out of them. Like that wasn't rust versus rest. It was just complete domination.
Right.
I think pure execution. And we go back to the game up in Eugene. Were there plays that maybe Ohio State didn't execute perfectly? Denzel Burke had a tough day that day.
Big Benes had a bad day too.
Yeah, they played much, much better. Like that difference of everyone being synced in. Will Howard having more weeks to practice with this entire team. That was late September, first week of October? I can't remember now. But it was still very early in the year where getting everyone in sync and getting everyone on the same page. Starting offense for Notre Dame, for Ohio State probably wasn't playing deep into ball games versus the 3 opponents they played to start the season. So you still don't have that connection yet. Practice is one thing, game is the other thing. Now we've gone through the entire season. They've seen adversity. They've learned from it. And now it's all clicking. Chip Kelly understands the positives and negatives of what the team is and how I can call. We evolve as the season goes on. And they're starting to see right now they're peaking. In the NFL, most times the best team of the regular season is not even playing in the Super Bowl, much less winning it. I mean, you have teams grow. Even the Tom Brady Buccaneers, they weren't the number 1 seed in the NFC. They had some struggles late in the year, and they had to catch fire late to get themselves going down the stretch. You've seen Chiefs teams not being the greatest, but somehow they get there and they just grind it out, and they find ways to peak toward the end of the season. It's who can survive the longest and who can start getting better and playing better as you get to the end. Will Howard being locked in, the running game being involved, the offensive line, which we thought was going to be a problem with 2 starters being out. I think they've even molded the offense to play to those strengths of those 5 players. It's like, all right, we're out with McLaughlin. We're out with our tackle. We've got to move stuff around. Where can we become the best 5 guys who play to their strengths and give them the confidence to be able to be successful and not make it too complex? And then just like the one thing when during the game, we were wondering why they weren't throwing the ball down the field. It's like, Chip, just throw the ball. You have a bunch of Escalades on the field. Give them the ball. And I think they've clicked. Dan Lanning, I think the lights were bright, but I think having that 3 to 4 week off of being told you're the number 1 seed and having all the pressure probably bit them in the butt. And you don't have the guys who are ready to take on that responsibility of being that top seed, and hearing how great they are for 3 weeks instead of getting back out there and just playing football.
Yeah, I can't believe the scheme Jack Sawyer's been having after 2 weeks of that. This defense has been lights out. Ken, though, I don't know. I just felt like they were ill-prepared. There's talks that the flu went through that team as well. Again, details upon details. I'm not well aware, but shoot, man, I can't wait to see what comes next. And that's the one thing I've told people, too. They're like, oh, you got to be enjoying this. And what this is reminding me of is when LeBron came back to Cleveland the second time. One of the things I said to people at that time was when the Cavs would make the playoffs, I'm just going to enjoy the playoff run. I'm going to enjoy the run. I'm not going to worry about, do I want my team to win a title every single time? Absolutely. I would be crazy to tell you I don't want them to win the whole thing. But I want to sit back and enjoy the game. Enjoy what's going on. Win or lose, just enjoy the fact that they're there now. And it's funny because that whole like fire Ryan Day crowd,
That's all gone.
It's gotten very quiet. Very, very quiet.
At this point, that shouldn't even be a conversation.
No.
It's not just two wins. It's two completely, you've eviscerated two opponents.
And two high quality opponents too.
So like that, and I know Nick Saban guys like, you guys, the Ohio State fans take that Michigan game too seriously. Well, you know what? Dude, you had a fan who poisoned a tree of your own rival. Rivalries matter. They're a different kind of thing.
What made college football great?
You have to, there's a lot of emotion that comes into play with that. And that pressure is something that you can't explain to anybody else. And that brings me to the next point. These past 2 weeks, Ohio State has had zero pressure.
I still think they have any pressure.
Well, now you have the pressure because you've been the most dominant looking team. You've blown out Oregon. You blew out Tennessee. And coming into this, look, Texas, okay. Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Penn State. Looking at the four, Ohio State's been the ones dominated start to finish in every facet of every football game up to this point in the playoffs. Now you're like, all right, well, if I'm looking at they're my number one team. I think they have the best chance to win the national championship. Now that pressure that you didn't have as much is starting to creep back in. You have to play to a standard.
Right.
So does the team start hearing how great they are now? Again, like, oh man, you're so amazing. Everything's fantastic. This team's going to win a national championship. How much is that outside noise as, a rat poison, as Nick Saban says it, and it's true. How much is that sort of seeping into the program? How many teams batten down the hatches like, look, we're still on a mission. One game at a time. Our focus is all on Texas. Don't listen to how great we're being told we are. We've got to go out and just take care of business and win this playoff game in one game at a time. It's cliche. It's easy to say, but
right.
Social media, people finally, you pat you on the back. It's a new era right now. And how does that team grasp and embrace that responsibility of being such a dominant force halfway through the playoff?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We got stuff coming up, and that's why we get to do a preview episode coming up for everyone next week. Folks, before we head on out of here, if I can get through this end of the episode here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. We got some big stuff coming along the way. We talked about, we'll do some draft content. We'll finish up the college football playoff. We'll jump into the NFL, do a little bit of NFL content. Once we get closer to the Super Bowl, we'll do draft stuff. We always have a great time doing our annual mock draft, and maybe we'll have to do more than one of those this year. Make sure you go on SpinnableSports.com. Check SpinnableSports.com because the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of SpinnableSports.com. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. And make sure you like, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast from. Leave us that 5-star review because you guys know Fresh and I were those 2 5-star prospects. With that, Fresh, that's all I got. It's been a heck of a first 2 rounds. We got 2 more football games to go in the semifinals, and then we're on to the Natty.
Everybody, football games, less and less, but they need more and more as we move forward. Embrace every single one of it because I think as of today, we're recording this on Friday, the 3rd of January. I don't know the date anymore. This is the last day of multiple college football games until August today. So they're few and far between. Embrace them, enjoy them. But draft season is always a lot of fun. Looking at players going on to the NFL playoffs. And obviously, we got 2 semifinals and a natty to talk about. So hit us up at SpinnableSports.com. Subscribe, spread the word, enjoy us. Hit us up on Twitter, the Twix, X, whatever you want to call it. And we'll go from there. Thanks, and bye, y'all.